With more and more social media, I've been getting way more calls from folks saying they want a revocable living trust. But when we start to talk about it, it's not clear why. So that's why I put together this presentation of Do I need a revocable living trust if I live in Washington state? First off, what is a revocable living trust? You can probably learn a lot by binge watching other videos, but here are some basics. First off, it's a written agreement. Attorneys can prepare it. Sometimes people prepare it themselves. The trustor is the person who creates it. They usually pick themselves to be the trustee, and the trustee manages everything. Creating the trust document is the beginning. You've got to transfer your stuff into the trust, and this is a big part of the admin work or administrative work we'll talk about later. Then you've got to manage it during your lifetime and keep it all tidy and up to date. Let's dispel some of the common myths right up front. There is no tax benefit. There is no asset protection from creditors. The main reason is because you, the trustor, have full control, and that cuts both ways. It's nice to have full control, including canning the whole thing, but it also means that you can't tell creditors that you don't have access to the funds. It also doesn't necessarily save you money over a traditional will and probate if you live in Washington state and die here. It could cost you more, double, even triple what would be spent over a traditional will. So why would you want a revocable living trust? If you're the kind of person who doesn't like to burden others, an RLT shares the administrative work. Funding and maintaining an RLT is kind of like starting a probate. You inventory your assets, retitle them into another vehicle. In this case, it's the RLT. If this were a probate, it'd be your probate estate. So if you like staying on top of things, you're the kind of person who files their taxes on time, your accounts and financials are just tidy and sorted, this might be your cup of tea. By doing this work and actively maintaining it during your lifetime, you do some of the work your heirs or future executor would do for you at death. Your future successor trustee or executor might be very happy that you have started this work for them. Another feature of an RLT is that it offers greater privacy. A will is filed with the court and is an open record. Some wills are drafted in a less personalized way, like everything to my spouse. Not a big surprise. Others have things that they'd rather not share, like I specifically disinherit my son George. Be aware that privacy cuts both ways. Here's a positive. Let's say you have no kids but 12 nieces and nephews, and you're giving everything to Sebastian, your favorite. If this were a probate, you're required to notify all 12. If this is an RLT, you can make Sebastian your successor trustee, and the other nieces and nephews don't get notice. Perhaps you're disinheriting someone and you don't want this publicly available knowledge. But there are also some drawbacks of privacy. Let's say you had 3 kids you wanted to inherit equally. Let's say you became incapacitated and your successor trustee, your son, managed your business for 10 years before you pass away. What if the other 2 kids feel like their brother has been taking money, but it's all behind closed doors? They may want more openness and court oversight, and you might want them to have this too. Another possibly good reason for an RLT, or at least a partially funded RLT, is if you have a house or land in another state. Real property, houses and land, go through probate in whatever state they're located. So if you're a Washingtonian and you die in Washington, but you have a vacation home in California, you'd need to open a probate in Washington and in California. By putting the California property into an RLT, you can avoid opening that second probate in California. But be aware, one of the main reasons infomercials urge RLTs is to avoid probate. But this is no guarantee unless you did everything correctly during your lifetime. Some considerations for married persons. One possible benefit is that there is a non-participating spouse from a financial perspective. Let's say husband manages all the finance and the spouse isn't really that interested in the details, and happily so. The husband may want to set up an RLT so all assets are identified, organized, and easily transferable to the spouse, and the spouse may appreciate this later too. The heirs of the couple, let's say their children, might also appreciate the advance set up by their now deceased father. Sometimes the heirs have no idea what was owned. Bear in mind, the father could have also informally written a list with account numbers and passwords, but this is a formal way to do this and forces the exercise, kind of like hiring a personal trainer or a coach who makes you do it. Let's briefly talk about divorce. After the funding of the RLT owns the assets. That means the house, bank accounts, whatever, are titled in the name of the trust. So the house is owned by the Bluebird Revocable Living Trust, for example. If the couple gets divorced, they will need to move the assets out of the Bluebird RLT and retitle them to whoever is awarded that asset. Let's talk briefly about probate. I have other videos on this. Is probate all that bad? Well, if you live in a state with a reputation for costly and difficult probates, I'm looking at you, California, then yes, you're going to see a lot of revocable living trusts, and there's a good reason for that. But if you live in Washington State and expect to die here, then probates are streamlined and generally efficient. Plus, the big bad waiting period of 4 months you might hear about is not that bad. It actually puts out a big sign to the world saying, creditors, come and get me. You've got 4 months and then the gates close. This isn't the case with RLTs, and if your successor distributes the funds and creditors with a valid claim come after him or her later, that's not a really great situation. Don't let avoiding probate be the only benefit you're seeking. Sometimes people come to me wanting an RLT to avoid probate, but we find other ways to avoid probate. I'll make videos about this later. Let's talk about some potential disadvantages of RLTs if you're in Washington State. First, it costs more money than a traditional will. It also takes more of your time to fund and maintain. Remember that you're starting some of the estate administration yourself during lifetime instead of having this happen after your death and being run by your successors or your executor. Next, it's not super common in Washington State, so third parties might be confused. This could include banks, your insurance companies, your mortgagors, or other third parties. It's also a bit more complicated with more moving pieces. For example, you might keep a personal checking account outside of the trust in your name only so that you don't expose the name of your trust. So much for privacy, and that requires a different transfer method at death. You don't get some of the automatic benefits of probate, like the creditor cutoff period, unless you opt in separately. An RLT can also foul up future Medicaid asset protection planning. Please consult with an experienced elder law attorney for more information about this. Well then, why is everyone telling me I need a revocable living trust? First off, they might live in another state with a very terrible probate statute. Second, they may be watching too many videos from other states where it's definitely a no-brainer to get one. Third, maybe they were the heir or successor trustee and they had less administrative work to do because their parents, the trustors, started that work for them and did a great job of maintaining the trust assets and debts. Perhaps the person telling you doesn't know about the drawbacks. And also, they may be thinking of a different type of trust that does have tax benefits and asset protection. There isn't an automatic right or wrong decision when it comes to revocable living trusts if you're a Washingtonian. It could be just right for your situation and priorities. It could be wrong. Consult with an attorney in your jurisdiction for advice specific to your situation. And if you're an attorney who does a lot of RLTs, let me know. I'd be happy to make more videos with more perspectives. Thanks for watching.